So last lecture, we talked about the different queries, basing a query on a query. A query can do more than just get data from a database. It can generate another table. So there's five different types of queries, six different types of queries actually. There's the select query, which is what we normally use, which is to get data from the database. We have got a make table query, which generates a table. So I'm going to show you examples of all these things just so you get an idea of what it looks like. So let's say you have a certain query that has to generate a table. These are rare. The crosstab query is probably one you're going to use for your assignment. The make table append query update. They're more rare. They're more data manipulation types, but it's good for you to see them anyways. So let me show you that. So we've got our tables here. Let's say we wanted to select out a certain group of DS1 records. So we'll go into DS1. We'll create a query design based on that. Cancel that. Drag the DS1 table in there, and let's say we want the length of stay and the TDAG one for a certain group of TDAG one. Let's say K4000. K40 star, because we kind of know about that one. We can run the query to see what it looks like, and that gives us our 1923 records. Now, let's say that for some reason that the length of stay of the K40s was we'll call it a weighted value or something like WV. We'll rename that to be a weighted value. And we'll say that the weight of length of stay for a K40 is times 2. So we want length of stay times 2, and so we can run that query, and now we've got a weighted value, weighted length of stay. I'll call it weighted length of stay. Let's say that a hernia is worth 2, for example. We'll make a primitive DRG calculation and weight the DRG. So we can do that. Now if we could use that query by itself, but let's say we wanted to combine this with some other set of data. So we'd make a table with this query. So go back into the design view there and convert it to a make table query. And so we're going to create a table. We're going to call it weighted LOS. And in the current database, we'll do that. And now when we run this query, it creates a table. It creates this weighted length of stay table. So this is not live. It is not directly connected to it. You have to run this again to generate that weighted length of stay. But if we look at weighted length of stay, it looks just like the output of the query. It's got 1923 records. It's got values in each of the things. The thing about it is you actually can. It's a table. You can delete things. You could say I want to delete those records. You can't delete records from a query. You can delete them from there. And so that's the make table query. The next one on the list is we'll go back to that query one. You'll see you can also let's see, query tools. There we go, query tools. You can also append data using a query. So let's say we want the K50s. And we want to, for them, the K50s, they have a factor of 4 because they're a more intense operation, for example, or something like that. So we run that query. We click on the view button. That doesn't run it. It doesn't actually generate it. And it shows that we've got bigger values in there for the K50s. Now, let's say we wanted to combine these two together. We wanted to add in the K40s and the K50s in one table. Well, we could turn this into an append query, and we can append it to weighted length of stay. And now when we run it, it adds those 84 rows to the 1923 rows of the other one. So now when we go look at weighted length of stay, what did that do? That should be more than that. Let's go down to the bottom and see if it, because it was open already. I've got to open it again. Now when I go to the bottom, it doesn't have 1923. It's got 2007. It's got the K5s, and it's also got the K4s, and they have a different factor. So you can do different things to different sets of records, combine them together using that make table and the append table things. Great. So that's something you probably will never need to use, but just kind of for interest's sake. You can also use your query to delete things, for example. So let's go to our query design tools. We, instead of grabbing that table, we can grab the weighted length of stay table. And let's say we don't like the K400. So we'll change it into a delete query. Okay, we want tdag1 and where. So you see now that the delete criteria, it says where. So where that thing is true, we'll run it. So K400 star. So once the star with K400, we can view it to see what it's going to do. It's going to delete those 11 records. And when I run that, it's going to ask us, do you want to delete those 11 records? We delete it. We say yes. Now, when we go back to weighted length of stay, it doesn't have 2007 anymore. It's got 1996 because we've deleted those 11 records. So that's the things you can do with a query design. You can delete, you can make table append and delete. Update is allows you to change certain values. So let's convert it to an update query. We're going to, oh, sorry. No, wait, cancel. I did the wrong one. To convert to an update query, we're going to update the table weighted length of stay. For example, let's say we want to update weighted length of stay and say, well, our factor was too much. We're going to divide it by 2. So weighted length of stay divided by 2. Oh, that didn't work. Maybe equals. No, that didn't work. Update 2. ls. I wonder if we can use the formula builder there. Build. Yeah. So this is a way to build formulas, and so it allows you to access the things in the parameter. Underscore. Maybe if I put brackets around that, it will treat it like a number divided by 2. Okay, that's better. Okay, so it will update it to that value. So we've divided them all by 2. So now when I run this, it will take those 1996 records and change them, divide them by 2. And if it's a yes, now when we go back into weighted length of stay, they're back to the original length of stay for the K4s, and then a bit less for that one, but divided by 2. Cool. So those are kind of interesting. I think they're interesting because I like that kind of stuff. Maybe you don't so much. So, but you're never going to use them. Make table, append, update, delete, not so useful. Crosstab, on the other hand, is useful. I totally think you should learn about crosstab. So what does crosstab do? Crosstab says, what happens is the data right now is in a long format. I mean, it's hard to think of it as long format because it's so freaking wide here, but it is generally long. Each patient is this way, and each patient is across, and there's long down this way. So let's run that query, grab that table, and have a look at, for example, the average length of stay for each sex. So we turn the totals button on. Oh, we have to go back and change it into a regular select query. Sorry, crosstab query. And we want to turn the totals button on. The totals buttons. Oh, crosstab queries already have the totals button turned on for you. Great. So we want the average length of stay. Average length of stay, but no, average length of stay by sex for a certain group of let's say tdag1. We don't actually, and we'll grab the diagnosis table in as well, so we can see how those things join together. So we can have a look at the description as well. We'll call that diagnosis underscore name colon. That's his principal diagnosis. PDX and length of stay we'll put at the end. So we run this query. Oh, and we want the K4000. Oh. Actually, let's just make it a select query to begin with. It's because that's you guys know how those work. K4 star. Great. Okay, so it's a select query. We've got the totals button on. We're looking at the average length of stay, the average length of stay for each of these things. So we run that, and we get the average length of stay for each of these things. And so that's kind of pretty. You know, it's got the problem is there's 48 different lines, and this F and the M, that's kind of redundant, you know, because why do we have so many F's there? Why do we have all that stuff? So it would be better if the F and the M were along the top of the column. And how would you do that? You do that with a crosstab. So it's really quite simple. Once you've got your base query and the long query and it's not quite right, you turn your crosstab on, and it's also a totaling thing. It doesn't change anything that way. But there's these, now you've got a crosstab line, and each thing in the crosstab line has to have a place to go. So what we want is we want sex to be a column heading. We want tdiag1 and ASCII desc to be row headings, because so they'll still end up on the side, and this is going to be the value. The average is the thing inside the cells. So now when I run that, you'll see that F and M are across the top, and we've got the values in there. The blank means that there was no men that had that particular gangrenous hernia. Very good. Let's do that again. So instead of F and M, let's look at the age group, because that also will work. We'll get rid of sex, and we'll put age group in there. We'll say crosstab. That's also a column heading, and yeah, that will give us the same thing. Just more columns across this up. It's a bit hard when you get to reports, because you don't know what the names of the columns are going to be. In the reports, you can round things. You can get rid of all those decimal places if you want. Yeah, but really quite nice. We have 28 lines and a wide version. It's much easier to compare things across than it is to compare down. And I encourage you to do that. That will get you better marks in the assignment. I got an itchy ear. That's it for special queries. I will stop there.